Brethren, can I feel the misrule in the air? Witches rudely riding, muttering, biting. Whilst ravens sit upon above thy chamber door, still sitting, pitter pattering heard from out the dark moor. Your name, a sudden whisper from out the wood, fog, creeping, crawling amidst the night's hood. Pacing, pondering, silence broken by a sudden tear, fear grasp your heart. Hallows Eve is here. My poem might perhaps have confused you slightly, but it's time for the yearly tradition of my Halloween top list. And since we've already crossed out one cliché list with the best gaming skeletons, we focus instead on the resurrection of the dead flesh. Zombies, pretty much.
Now that's a lot of damage!
Just like their depiction in movies and other media, video games have their own forms of representation, so let's take a look at the very best of these. Starting off with a real classic, must play for the spooky season, we have Left 4 Dead and their version of the zombie, the Infected. While there are many interesting special infected, even those named for old people, and even for those that want to die a bit early, the king on the throne in this scenario is the many forms and variations of the classic infected. The biggest threat lies in their massive numbers, and underestimating them can lead to you yourself becoming one of them. It's also sort of sad. Any one of these monstrosities could be someone's husband, mom, aunt, child, or even... Never mind. The amount of work that went into making these enemies are astounding and should really be remembered, which is partly why they make their mark here on this list. While the survival horror genre largely exploded after the success of Resident Evil, the arguably most important entry was Resident Evil 4. Not counting sales then, since apparently the one that sold the most was Resident Evil 5? The most terrifying sight, or rather, the most terrifying sound, was from these f***ers. But those don't really cut it, and they appear in such a small section of the game, so the winner of course goes to the Las Plagas and their variations. Unlike the T-virus in the previous installments, the Las Plagas strengthens and enhances the host's capabilities, causing them to function like a hive mind, where they pursue their target until the target is terminated, and most likely also robs them of their reasoning. The Plaga appears in most, if not all, major enemies throughout the game, and due to the different stages of transformations, keeps the player on their feet, if they don't want to quite literally lose their head. When the Dead Island franchise slowly became more and more foreign from its conception vision, there was a game coming to take its place. And that game was Dying Light. And you probably see where I'm going with this. The game has a large focus on parkour and scavenging buildings for items or other valuable parts. But it also has a day and night cycle that's important to keep track of. When it's day, most zombies are relatively docile or slow. If you're just a bit careful, they're easy to avoid or slay. But if you happen to be out when the veil of night falls, chances are high you run into volatiles. These infected are deadly, can tank a lot of damage, and the worst part of it all for you, of course, is that they are highly agile. The sheer panic they inflict upon the player during their first appearance is not to be undersold. Even after this, they continue to be on the more dangerous side of enemies, perhaps the most dangerous enemy in the entire game. Volatiles are what you want in a zombie enemy, easy to remember, very hard to forget. The Despite being a ghost in his first appearance, there is few undeads more famous or more iconic in the video game scene than LeChuck from the Monkey Island series. What makes him so memorable is not only his ruthlessness and massive beard, but his determination and how he always returns, whether as a demon or a giant statue. His most famous, and my personal favorite, is as an undead in Monkey Island 2, LeChuck's Revenge. Although his arrogance is almost always the reason for his demise, the Caribbean setting paired with some voodoo-based antics spares no effort to hide the obvious connection to zombie folklore. The character also came to influence the Pirates of the Caribbean series heavily, as you can clearly tell. If looking for a zombie that stands the passage of time, look no further than LeChuck from Monkey Island. As time passes in the gaming sphere, it becomes an increasingly demanding task to create a unique enemy. And if that enemy is a zombie, it's almost impossible. Regardless, Naughty Dog managed to do exactly so with their Cordyceps zombies, more often referred to as clickers. What makes these fellas stand out in the crowd is not only their fungi-like design, but also why they are. The clickers are the third entry in the infection stage, where a parasitic Cordyceps fungus has taken root inside humans. And the scariest thing is that this very infection is based on a real one. But do not fret, in reality, it's not dangerous for us humans. In the game, however, they very much are, and having to sneak around these sound-sensitive blind killers that were once human is nothing short of creepy. Nonetheless, these fiends are unforgettable and a big part of why The Last of Us was as good as it was, and still is. The Trinity of Fears once again rears its ugly head. Being chased, being locked into a place in some way, and not being able to defend yourself. Congratulations. If we switch out the last one with being in space, congratulations again, it's just as scary. One of the more memorable games that I've played when it comes to horror is Dead Space. The thick atmosphere, the setting, the unknown, and lastly, those absolutely terrifying Necromorphs. Necromorphs are these dead bodies that's been recoded to form ghastly beings. Conversely, while normal zombies often goes down from a bullet to the head, Necromorphs seem to highly dislike it when you shoot off their limbs. But then again, they may also fake it. Unpredictability, sneakiness and terror stand in the forefront of these baddies, and the many variations. At the time of this video's release, the Dead Space remake is possibly out, and oh boy, I hope it is as good as it looks. One can only pray. There's nothing quite like your first time. It's always going to be special. You know how it felt, what you thought and where you were. I remember it vividly. I was no older than 13. What? You thought I was talking about something else? I'm instead talking about the very first zombie from the first Resident Evil game. Although not the very first zombie in gaming, Alone in the Dark and Doom was before, the first zombie in Resident Evil might still be one of the most famous ones. Back in the day it was a shocking sight, expertly done with a heavy focus on being cinematic, and oh boy, it was terrifying. It's one of the most well-known scenes not only within the horror genre, but the entire gaming community, and it's very easy to see why. Hell, it's the one scene that actually gave me nightmares for years before I could even see a zombie without being scared shitless, and that's a true story unfortunately. The first zombie, as I like to call it, will forever be a legendary enemy, an excellent entry to the horror game party. When it comes to horror, and in this case sea boys, they're mostly portrayed in games made for teenagers and up. There are exceptions, however, and these exceptions are sometimes the scariest of them all. Enter The Legend of Zelda for the N64, a charming game full of bubbly music, large green fields and cute cows. How can this game even be scary?
Holy shit!
These terrifying beings have no business being in this cute-ass game. The worst part is the bone-chilling, paralyzing scream they emit. How Link becomes seemingly frozen by fear, and the Red-Dead's slow, inevitable shuffling towards you, just waiting for death. Just look at the concept art of them, gives me the heebie-jeebies. Heebie-jeebies. They do fit in more in Majora's Mask since it has a darker focus, but despite that I still think they are far too scary for a game marketed to children, and they actually gave me nightmares too. My track record isn't very good with zombies. If I am being perfectly clear, zombies themselves are rarely scary for me nowadays. If you do it right, like in Resident Evil with thick atmosphere and tension, they can be a catalyst to making it scary, but generally they themselves aren't. This isn't the case with the next entry. Explaining a game like Half-Life 2 almost seems superfluous, and when it came to zombies they certainly did them justice. For example, the creepy headcrab zombies whose paralyzing wails are unforgettable. But no, they don't quite make it. Instead, it's the fast zombies that speeds into your nightmares before you even realize it. Kinda like a zombie Sonic, if you will. They get introduced to Goron during the Ravenholm section, which in itself isn't particularly easygoing. And it goes from creepy to downright hell on earth after these bastards begin jumping the rooftops. Cue their blood-curdling scream. And we've almost got zombie perfection on our hands. But there's one more zombie that really kicks it up a notch. And will haunt not only your nightmares, but you won't go to the bathroom in the middle of the night without turning on the lights. I can almost guarantee it. If there is one enemy I absolutely am terrified of to this day, and I'm not joking when I say just looking at a picture of the zombie in question gives me shudders, it's Nemesis. Mom, can we have Nemesis? But we already have Nemesis at home. The Nemesis from the OG game is the only one who you can actually call Nemesis. Not only is the mere sight of this monstrosity absolutely skeleton leaving your body inducing, but his unrelentless pursuit and that voice, man, a simple line with so much impact and fear within it. The almost ultimate zombie, never giving up the chase, is faster than what meets the eye, can take a heck of a lot of damage before going down, and may even chase you with an RPG. The moments where he roars and the screen goes full on negative, you have two choices, pick fast. Is the reason for my Trinity rule of being chased being the scariest. And that's a true story again, I'm not even. Nemesis is the most terrifying and best zombie in gaming, period. And those were the best and or creepiest zombies in gaming, in my opinion at least. I hope you enjoyed the list and that your Halloween will be spooky enough. Subscribe and like, and continue to have a great day and or evening, and I'll see you next time around.